Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us again. I really wanted to have this discussion with my business partner, Haysam, because I've been posting a lot of content and creating a lot of content regarding the future of plastic credits. And my brother here has experience in the precedent, the established precedent on the market, which is called the carbon credits and the carbon markets. Of course, we know his story repeats itself, or at least rhythms. And that's why I really wanted to speak to you. Hey, Sam, can you please tell us a little bit more about your experience and even your academic background on this topic, bringing this credibility and then putting a mirror with what is happening today in this project we are working on together?
Yeah, thanks, my man. Thank you for your great analysis of the current market dynamics with plastic credits, or CSR plastic credits. Currently, we have two types. The CSR, what we might call original, which has been around for about 5 years, and CSR 25, which is the one that we are currently minting along the flow of the plastic interactive package purchases. So this is a very different dynamic from what's been going on with the original CSR. And my background as an industrial economist specialized in carbon finance is telling me that this is absolutely huge. What we are dealing with right now is an asset unlike any other, because at the time when I was involved in the carbon finance industry, there were no regulations that were forcing companies to buy those credits to offset their carbon footprint, but still the negotiations were ongoing. So companies and governments knew that something was going to come at some point. So some were playing ahead, way ahead of their time. And of course, when the regulation kicked in, those who were playing before got to benefit from it because they were very well positioned to benefit from the new regulations. So what we're seeing right now with this plastic credit market is going to be even bigger than carbon, for a simple reason that it's not going to apply only to so-called industrialized or rich countries. It's going to apply to the whole world, 185 countries around the world, under the helm of the United Nations. So it's going to be huge, because the plastic waste problem is not something that we can, let's say, discuss. It's not something that is debatable. You cannot be plasticoseptic. You can't. You either realize that we have a problem and you want to solve it, or you just don't want to look at the problem. But either or, we have a huge problem at hand. And the bigger the problem, of course, the bigger
The
the
opportunity,
opportunity.
absolutely. That's why I
So
love that. So, there is an experience you have, which is for me is extremely precious, and actually was one of the reasons why when you saw me talk about plastic credits, you got interested because you didn't hear about this concept before. And if we look at the graph of the carbon credit market, the slide I usually use is the one that ranges from 2015 to nowadays. And actually, you were involved in 2009, right?
yeah, way before.
That is even is 10 years before the actual emergence of the market. So that means that there was a 10-year period between the time where you were involved and you could smell that something was going to happen and the moment it actually happened. Can you describe what kind of market signals, what you were seeing in the world back then that you are seeing repeating themselves now on the plastic topic?
Yeah, I was indeed involved in this market way before this graph is showing. This graph starts at 2016. I was involved back in 2008. This is when I started discovering. Actually, at that time, I had been a trader in 2005 in the forex industry, so foreign exchange, euro, dollar, yen, pound, those kinds of things. And then I gave up on it because I found that it was actually speculation. It was quite destructive, not only for the planet but for humanity. Even me as an individual speculating like that, I found that to be extremely destructive. So I switched to a totally different industry, actually an opposite industry, which was the let's say, humanitarian or sustainable development work. So when I got involved with that, I knew that there was something else that I could be doing that could bridge the gap between both. And this is where carbon finance appeared. So that was back in 2008. At that time, the signals that were being given by the market were that we would actually, at some point, reach a stage where it would be mandatory, but it was not yet. And what was actually moving me personally was an ideal where we can literally make purpose meet profit. And this was my aspiration, because indeed this world needs some fixing. And at the same time, the main currency, the main way that we do all of that is through money. So if we have a way to make money while making sense at the same time, then we're solving the problem. So at the time when I was involved in this industry, there was no market really. It was all voluntary. So it was literally peer-to-peer. Some company would create a project that offsets the carbon footprint, let's say, that would reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and some other company would buy those credits as the proof that the project has been rendered. And the signals, they were weak, but they were there. And those signals were in the media, the signals were in the businesses that were starting on that line of thoughts of doing business. It was in the conferences that I was attending. More and more people, more and more conferences. So it was clear that there was going to be at some point some regulation, but it took many years. It took nearly 10 years indeed before the Paris Agreement, and therefore the regulatory obligation. But then after that, of course, the market went up because it got organized. There were mandatory obligations and stuff. And right now, with the plastic credit market, we're observing something similar. We're seeing in the media that they're starting to talk about it. We're seeing that so many companies are starting to actually kind of invest in that field. Corsair is definitely one of the biggest players, and today the leading, in terms of growth, industrial actor, because of the model that they've chosen. They've chosen to actually work on the basis of crowdfunding. And crowdfunding is very powerful, because this is why we're making this video, because we are advocates of Corsair's business model. So this is proving to work. And what we're seeing also is more and more governments knocking at Corsair's door, asking them to actually collaborate with them, because they have the expertise and because obviously they have the capacity to make it happen. And that's a people-powered business. So what I'm seeing right now playing in the carbon credits field is literally history repeating itself, but with little tweak, which is that at the time when I was involved with carbon finance, it was a big player thing. It was a big company, big oil, let's say, big players. Today, big oil comes knocking at Corsair's people-powered business because we're doing a great job, because we're literally turning the trash into wealth. And that's something that is unique, because Mr. and Mrs. Smith, literally anyone can get involved. Instead of putting their savings into whatever kind of financial products or whatever, people can take that money and literally put it at good use by helping us to build those factories and recycle that plastic waste. So this is quite unique. And what's playing is what I might call a paradigm shift. We are shifting the tide against plastic waste, because we're not seeing it as waste anymore. We're seeing it as potential wealth. Wealth waiting to be literally uncovered out of the filth, like a lotus flower that's literally sprouts from the dirt and then becomes so beautiful. And that's what we're doing. So this is why I'm so positive about these plastic credits, these CSR plastic credits that are minted right now, the CSR 25 especially, because of the business model that is being used, because of the timing on the market. It's very early right now. It's great that the plastics credits are cheap, because then companies can adopt that tool as a means for them to offset their plastic waste footprint, even though they have no legal obligation for most companies, for most countries right now. some do have obligations, but we're going to see something very, very interesting playing on the market dynamics in the coming years with the CSR original, with the CSR 25, the CSR 26, with the other type of plastic credits, which are definitely not as effective as ours, because most plastic credits, as you certainly know, are not necessarily plastic credits which stem from recycling. Many plastic credits just stem from just collecting, just taking the waste from the seashores, from the beaches, and then putting it in a landfill, and they call it the plastic credit. So, but that's not what we do. We actually recycle the plastic. We turn it into literal oil, fruit oil. So the market dynamic that's going to be playing is extremely interesting.
I would like to share one information that I just found. This was published by the World Bank a few months ago in 2025. And with regards to your experience, and you saw the growth of this market emerging. Well, today, 28% of global emissions for carbon are covered by a mechanism to compensate it. That's crazy. In 10 years plus 6 years, so in 16 years, now a third of the planet's polluting emissions are now covered. And that's really why we're here with this plastic project. There is no reason why the same will not happen with plastic pollution. Even more so that the crisis is there in our face, more than the temperature rising of the planet. And I really love the on-the-ground experience that you've had back at the time. And of course, history will be a bit different, but it's the vision that counts. And for me, the vision that I want to remind everyone and also share with you here is that if a third of all the pollutions from carbon on the planet today are covered, imagine the growth potential for the plastic pollution, where today virtually nothing is covered.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. It's that we have so many ways today to offset carbon footprint. There are 80 ETS, emission trading systems, around the world, which means that many little markets have sprouted. And of course, with the certifications of all these projects which come afloat, which arise, companies can use that to offset their plastic waste footprint because it's certified. And what we're doing right now with Corsair and the plastic credits is in that same vein. We use the same protocols. We use the ISCC, the International Sustainability and Carbon Certification, which is recognized at the global level as being the gold standard for this kind of circular economy projects. We use also external third-party auditing firms to help us assess that what we do is absolutely clear, absolutely spotless. We also use the blockchain technology, and to my knowledge, the CSR plastic credit is the only plastic credit that is publicly tradable on the financial markets. So we're doing something really, really well here. And it's just a matter of time before the world picks up on it. So I'm very happy to be with you, thanks to you and to so many others before you, to be part of the pioneering movements of these plastic credits, which are literally turning the tide against plastic pollution.
For sure. I know you're short on time. Can I ask you one last question, or you don't have the time?
Sure.
Okay. When you talk about an ETS, emission trading system, there is 80 today for the carbon credits. I would like to know if the CSR ecosystem that is being built by Corsair would become a so-called ETS for plastic. Would that be comparable?
I think right now what we're building is beyond an ETS, because an ETS is something that started with voluntary emissions, but there was no blockchain technology at that time. At that time, it was like a ledger, which would be kept by a private company. And then those ledgers kind of made sense and made faith, were like proof of good faith. But right now what we're doing is that we're using a technology that was not available 15 years ago, which is the blockchain. And that blockchain technology is not only totally transparent and accessible for anyone, anywhere in the world, but it's absolutely we can't mess with it. Like once something has been written on that ledger, it's there forever. And it's transparent, it's decentralized. Let's suppose even Corsair goes bankrupt for whatever reason. I don't think it will. I think actually, if I can buy shares in Corsairs, I want as many as possible. But let's imagine that Corsair disappears. No problem, because the plastic credits have been certificately emitted as part of an industrial process, and they are on the blockchain. So they're there. Even if Corsair disappears, the proof that 100 grams of plastic waste has been recycled is there. So I would say it goes even further, and I'm pretty sure that the CSR plastic credit is going to become the gold standard. That other companies will copy that model so that they can literally prove that their projects are just as ethically and economically sustainable, and that therefore their plastic credits are actually amounting to a certain real amount of plastic waste that has been taken out of the environment. And the particularity of our plastic credits is that, of course, they do not come from incineration. That's totally not recycling. And they do not even come from mechanical recycling. They come from chemical recycling, which allows us to recycle things which otherwise are not actually recyclable through mechanical means. Like, for example, this kind of plastic. This is recyclable only through chemical recycling. But mechanical recycling, where you would be literally breaking down bottles or whatever into smaller pieces and you cannot recycle it infinitely, that's not even what we do. We just leave it to the ones who do that. So I really think that the CSR plastic credits are really going to become the gold standard, and that any company that decides to invest their, let's say, future into working with us will definitely be part of the stewards of the new circular economy paradigm, where people can make profit and make good at the same time by using something that nobody wanted, trash, to turn it into what everybody wants, profits. All right, gotta go, my man. Thank you so much.